You guys might recall there was that scheme where if Derek Chauvin got acquitted, the FBI was going to swoop in, they were going to charge him with federal charges, and he'd just end up getting fucking whisked away again in chains, and another trial would have ensued. But because he was found guilty on all three charges, he was just allowed to be dragged off in chains and sent for sentencing that is supposed to be happening soon-ish, I suppose. But he's also got some more charges against him. And it's getting fucking sketchy at this point. So we might as well do a little follow-up, because this is the story that will never, ever, 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 ever end. Federal grand jury indicts 4 former officers involved in George Floyd's death. A federal grand jury has indicted 4 Minneapolis police officers involved in George Floyd's arrest and death last year, and said they violated Floyd's constitutional rights when he was restrained face down, according to indictments that were unsealed Friday. Why and how? Okay, if these charges weren't brought up by the prosecution, why all of a sudden are these being brought up? I don't get it. I don't get it. This seems like just more petty punishment at this point. Chauvin, Lane, Kueng, and Thao, all 4 white supremacists, obviously, were named in the indictment, although Thao, Chauvin, and Kueng were charged with violating Floyd's right to be free. Right to be free. Give me free. From unreasonable seizure and excessive force, the 4 officers were charged with failure to provide Floyd with medical care. They called an ambulance. What? What? This is, okay. Chauvin was convicted last month. Yes, we know. The new federal charges come in addition to the state's cases, which means that all 4 could face new trials in federal court. New trial? Okay. Thao, Kueng, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. It sucks, but it sounds good. And Lane face trial on the state charges in August, and they are free on bond. Oh, no. That August court date is, we'll get to it. It's not happening, is the long and short of it. The grand jury also indicted Chauvin on a separate case. Oh, for Christ's sakes, that fucking strung together 2017 incident. I know I covered that one. I'm not too sure when, but it was one of those follow-ups when we talked about that previous scheme that the FBI was going to try and pull. 2017, where he allegedly pinned down a 14-year-old boy during an arrest who was once again resisting arrest, and we don't have any evidence or any fucking video on that one, but just believe us, because Chauvin, bad man. Court documents allege that Chauvin hit the boy with a flashlight. Okay. Grabbed him by the throat and hit him again. Okay. If he did, he did. And if he didn't, I'm sure it'll come out in the impartial and 100% honest legal system that we have right now. I don't give a fuck about Chauvin. Okay? I just care about justice. And what I'm seeing right now, ooh, buddy, does it look anything but justice at this point. Kueng and Lane also helped restrain Floyd, and the state prosecutors have asserted that Kueng knelt on Floyd's back and Lane held down Floyd's legs. Yeah, we've seen that, okay? So what now? A knee to the fucking lower back asphyxiates somebody? Is that what we're going to go by? Or just holding his ankles together means that he can't breathe properly? Is that the fucking levels we're going to be going to in order to punish these guys post facto? Chauvin's attorney, Eric Nelson, argued during his murder trial that Chauvin acted reasonably in the situation, and Floyd died because of the underlying health issues and drug use. No, fentanyl doesn't kill people. Knees on backs apparently do. But we're getting more questions into the oddity that is, in fact, the evidence and the experts that were presented in this trial. And, oh, no, it's not the fact that we had one dissenting opinion from a medical examiner from Maryland who is right now having all of his old cases gone through because of my political prosecution, obviously. Judge postpones trial for 3 ex-cops in George Floyd case after bombshell allegation. Yeah, that's not just being hyperbolic. This is very, very odd, and this case is going to be taking a big old fucking swing because some shit wasn't properly conducted. Minnesota judge on May 13th, that's today, delayed the trial of 3 former police officers who were involved in the arrest of George Floyd in Minneapolis last year, after one of the officers' defense attorneys argued that the medical examiner who performed Floyd's autopsy was coerced by prosecutors. You don't say. It wasn't that we have, as you can see, probably just a little bit up and a little bit over that guy there, he was one of the jurors who was talking. He was the guy who had the Black Lives Matter shirt. He was the guy who attended a Black Lives Matter rally, was asked about it, and then he was like, no, I didn't go to no rally. Oh, what was that Martin Luther King rally that you went to? That was a Black Lives Matter production? No, that was just a Martin Luther King rally. You fucking morons. He's a liar. He's a grifter. And he's also a squealer at this point. So I don't know if he's just incompetent or malicious. Your choice rather. Lane, Kueng, and Tao, according to court records, will now face trial on March 7th. Wow, that's did they already go to 2022, a delay of more than 6 months from the previous date. Okay, just a question. I don't know about this for sure, but isn't this a violation of a Fourth Amendment right, like a right to a speedy trial? Like, these guys have this hanging over their heads for just about a year, 10 months at this point? Huh. That's just a question. I don't know for sure, but it sure screams like some kind of a constitutional violation. But then again, this whole trial and situation is Hennepin County District Judge Peter Cahill told a pre-trial hearing in Minneapolis that he wanted to give time for federal prosecutors to pursue their case against the three men. Yeah, looks like Cahill wasn't quite necessarily on the Chauvin side. It looks like everybody was pretty much against the guy, and even the experts. Federal grand jury last week indicted. Those were the charges that we just went over. Floyd eventually stopped breathing was soon ruled dead. No, you don't say. Federal charge the former officers were indicted on carries up to life in prison, with the death penalty possible in certain scenarios. Yeah, remember Maxine Waters being out there saying only murder one? We'd only accept murder one. They're fucking trying to weasel their way into this one. Matthew Frank, a state prosecutor, told Cahill he disagreed with pushing the trial back to next year and he wanted to proceed in August. Arrows in the way. CARE 11 reported Cahill had heard two other matters. Lane's attorney asked the judge to compel Minnesota authorities to pursue all use of force reports where force was ruled by Minneapolis police officers in making an arrest, and other officers either orally or physically intervene in the use of force by his or her fellow officers in the last 50 years. Well, that'll take some time now, won't it? Cahill hasn't ruled on the matter, but asked prosecutors to get back to him on how many reports over 10 years would be generated under the request to help him decide the rule. He also asked prosecutors to get Richard Zimmerman, different Zimmerman, a Minneapolis police officer, to find a report from decades ago that described when Zimmerman intervened physically to stop a fellow officer from using excessive force on a prisoner who was handcuffed. So now we're just adding in more evidence to this case. This is fucking odd. But I guess this is going to be a separate case, I guess. But why is Cahill still... all of this is weird. The other matter was a motion that accused state prosecutors of leaking to the New York Times details a plea deal with Chauvin that never fully materialized. Sorry, thank you, Bill Barr. You cocksucker, you could have avoided all of this. Frank, the only prosecutors to submit such an affidavit, speculated that the U.S. Department of Justice leaked to the New York Times. Defense lawyers said Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison was likely to blame. Of course he was. He is a crook of the highest order. On May 26, 2020, Baker told prosecutors that the autopsy revealed no physical evidence suggesting that Mr. Floyd died of asphyxiation. You don't say. And this is Dr. Andrew Baker, the Hennepin County medical examiner, who Tau's lawyer alleged was directly and indirectly coerced by the state and its agents into altering Floyd's autopsy report. You don't say. Floyd showed no signs of damage to his airways or thyroid or brain bleeding. Apparently it's contagious. Bone injuries or internal bleeding. Findings released to the public 3 days later said that there were no physical findings that support a diagnosis of traumatic asphyxia or strangulation. But the final autopsy report listed neck compression. Okay. There was no physical evidence. Why did you have to put down the neck compression? Well. In the intervening time, Baker spoke to Dr. Roger Mitchell, former medical examiner of Washington, about the autopsy findings. Mitchell decided to write an op-ed critical of Baker's finding in the Washington Post. You know, that totally unbiased and completely reputable source, the Washington Post, just like the New York Times. According to the filing from Tau's lawyer, Mitchell later called Baker again to let him know nothing sketchy going on there. In the conversation, Mitchell said, "You don't want to be the medical examiner who tells everyone they didn't see what they saw." You remember closing arguments from the prosecution. Remember, just look, use your eyes, man. You know what you saw. What he did is what you saw. Don't look at any of the evidence. Just appeal to emotion. You don't want to be the smartest person in the room and be wrong. Now, do you? Of course not. Said there is no way to articulate the cause and manner of death that ensures you are telling the truth and what you are observing, and via all those investigations, Mitchell said neck compression has to be the diagnosis. Of course, because that's what they want. That's the narrative that they wanted. Okay, that was the first body camera footage that was out there. It wasn't body camera footage, rather. It was bystander video that was out there. Oh, man, that looked terrible. Knee was on his neck. And then we seen a ton of different angles during the entire trial. The defense raised several terrific points, and they were all swept under the rug because, hey, they could have had a verdict in about 20 minutes, okay? It was just one holdout arguing a couple of the phraseology questions that he had. Other than that, they would have had everything all done and dusted, and everybody would have been home later that day. In fact, if we are to believe the testimony of Brandon Mitchell, I don't know, chronic liar. Let's go with that. Listen to his podcast. I'm sure it's an excellent listen. What Mitchell amounts to is coercion. This is rather Dr. Mitchell, not the juror. Amounts to coercion, a crime under Minnesota law. The state prosecutors knew that a potential expert witness had coerced the state's main expert witness, only expert, to perform the physical autopsy in the state on the case of State v. Tou Thao, the former officer's lawyer, Bob Powell, charged. Baker's office declined to comment, citing pending litigation. Yeah, this one's going to be interesting because they're going to have to go ahead and prove that that's not the case. Because clearly this guy has the receipts. He knows what the fuck went down, and this could make for a very, very, very interesting coming months. I don't know how quickly this is going to get resolved, but state plans to file a complete response in 1 week, he said, on the 12th. So next Wednesday, we should be hearing something, and that'll be interesting. We'll see what comes out of this, and I could be reporting on this sooner rather than later. But yeah, you would have thought this would have all been done and dusted, but it could get awfully rioty up in here very, very shortly. With that said, I thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.